Hello, everyone, and welcome to Writers Drinking Coffee. This is a podcast of a bunch of writers sitting around drinking tasty beverages and talking about writing, publishing, and the whole creative process. We do not censor ourselves, so consider us PG-13. Your hosts today are Chaz and Karen Brenchley and me, Jeannie Warner. This is episode 115, interview with Cassandra Alexander. Welcome, Cassandra.
Hi, it's awesome to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. This is great.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Now, you and Chaz and Karen know each other from FogCon, right?
I can't claim that we've hung out super extensively, but I definitely know you guys in passing and stuff. So I'm excited for this opportunity to hang out more.
Absolutely. You know, we've never even talked about FogCon. How did you get involved with FogCon?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm friends with Vylar, which meant that being part of FogCon was inevitable. No, I live in the Bay Area and I write science fiction and fantasy. Well, actually, mostly right now, paranormal romance novels. And so FogCon is a fantastic local convention that I've just always enjoyed going to. So, it's nice that it's so easily available. And I've always had a good time there. So that's kind of how I fell in.
It is. And FOG stands for Friends of Genre. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I always liked that it had so many interpretations of, we're the friends of genre.
Yes. Well, plus it's a nice con because the bar has a huge open space in front of it. And so everyone hangs out in groups and everybody walks by the big open space where people are, as opposed to being jammed into little hallways and that kind of thing. And so you get more of a chance to meet people, see people, just catch someone as they go by, have dinner with them. It's just a fun place. It's one of my favorites, and I miss it.
Yeah, gosh, me too. I feel like that, because I know you guys were there, that last FogCon in 2020 was the last real thing I did, practically, almost,
Yes, it was the last real thing we did. Yeah. I miss it. So, in the meantime,
I was going to say, to get back to Cassandra, how long have you been writing? And I know it's not your day job, and we'll get into the details of that with your latest book, but give us a little bit about the background of you.
Oh, gosh. So, writing or successfully writing? I've been writing.
I don't think it actually matters because there's a lot of I believe that anybody is a writer and could be a writer. So start with when you were dreams of an itty bitty writer and give us your process.
No, actually that's great. Thanks for saying that because that's super true. The first convention I went to, because I'm an old, was the World Fantasy Convention in Monterey in 1998.
I was
oh, cool. I had just finished my first book, and that was my big experience. And I've basically been writing straight ever since, but I didn't actually have any books published until 2011.
Still, that's not bad for that's actually pretty good. So, and you've got, which book was it?
It was night shifted. So I became a nurse to kind of pay the bills. I always knew I wanted to be a writer, but unfortunately you'll know how that is. So, so I wrote Night Shifted, which was basically about a nurse working on a floor for vampire-exposed humans, which was kind of like a thinly veiled version of my life at the time, only with the addition of vampires. And I'm excited.
Not real, but we're all suspicious.
Yeah, the nursing parts are real. And I've actually started to slowly get my rights back from St. Martin's for that series. So that was a 5-book series that I had trad pubbed in the early 2010s. So, yeah.
Now, see, that was night shifted, moon shifted, shape shifted.
Blood shifted and dead shifted. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm hoping if I can finish getting all of my rights back, then I can kind of, do the indie thing with finish it how I want to finish it and that sort of stuff.
Excellent. So going back and did you go through an agent the first time or did you go straight to a publisher?
Oh, no, I went through an agent. I had a huge slog trying to find an agent. I think my agent was lucky number 72 query-wise. Yeah, the only saving grace I realized after I found her was the fact that every time an agent rejected me on my spreadsheet, I took their line and bounced it to the bottom. So I didn't actually see on my spreadsheet how many times I'd been rejected cumulatively. which was good for my soul on accident. So that's an A++ method for getting yourself to keep going up to bat.
No, that's excellent. I see it all over Twitter. People's like, oh my gosh, I'm on my 5th rejection. I will keep thinking,
oh yeah,
only
yeah.
5?
No, I feel bad for them. And I'm sorry, 72. I think that must be too many. 42 though. I know I was at least in the 40s. This was a really long time ago. But the thing was, is I knew with that book I was on the right path because so many agents had requested to see fulls, and most of the time they had problems with it. It was like with the tone of the book, which I knew wasn't something that I was going to be able to fix with a rewrite because I had written it how I wanted to write it. And so after it got agented, she was able to sell it pretty much right away with minimal changes. So yeah, excellent. You just never know.
And the latest one you've written, and this is the one that I just finished reading last night and I'm really excited about. Is this your first nonfiction?
Oh, yeah.
Because
I've never had a reason to write nonfiction before.
It's very autobiographical, and I have already bought 2 copies to send out to friends of mine that are nurses just because they'll feel less alone. So this is, you called it The Year of the Nurse, a 2020 COVID-19 pandemic memoir. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. No, thank you for buying copies for your friends. That's awesome. And yeah, no, that's my first foray into nonfiction, and I cross my heart and hope to die, but not really, that I never have to make another one.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it, but Chaz brought it home and of course grabbed it and read it first. And I heard him, he's a man of few spoken words and just raved about it.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things I liked about it is that it's a memoir, and yet you blended things that had already gone before. You blended your own tweets and your own texts and you made it very real for people by anchoring it in social media experience that they could go look up if they wanted to, or they remember. Mm-hmm. And I have found, because a lot of people we've all been deeply traumatized in the last year and a half. Memory does not write as well when we're all in a heightened state of anxiety. So the fact that you kept it all and you put it down and you start each with a tweet, and then the chapter goes through and elaborates more, and you teach the reader, it's hugely valuable. I think that there's many people that could learn a lot from just the walk down memory lane of, oh, I didn't realize it was so bad.
Yeah. I don't want to traumatize people. And I've had a lot of readers tell me, oh, I wanted to throw it against the wall in a good way, not because they're angry at the book, but they're frustrated with the situation described in the book. But yeah, basically I leaned into Twitter so hard because just for some reference here, I was an ICU, I am an ICU nurse. But during COVID times, and I volunteered like right off the bat because I'm stupid idiot and to take care of COVID patients. And so that was my lot in life for a very long time at work. And I leaned into Twitter really hard because Twitter gave me the opportunity to kind of mouth off as things were happening to me. And so that gave me kind of, when I was able to download all my old tweets, like a retrospective of how I sharply felt in each individual moment, like sometimes, so granular, like down to the shift when it happened. And then I would come home and I would still be just so bursting with emotions and frustration and oftentimes anger that I would just kind of unleash into assorted journal venues, because I needed to dump my feelings out basically so I could function as a human being. And so me having all that material wasn't really intentional necessarily. It was just something I was doing along the way to try and stay a functional human. So.
Yeah, but it's turned into, you've turned it into something that is so useful because, I am not ill-informed, but I had no notion of what exactly was involved in being an ICU nurse with COVID patients. And now I have a very clear picture. The book, page by page, it's so granular. I think it's a remarkable achievement.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And that was kind of a goal, especially in the last winter when I got into doing the 2 Nurses Talking newsletters with my friend who works in Missouri, because we wanted to explain to people what it was like, because everybody kept thinking we were just cogs in a machine and they could get cogs out of somewhere and just plunk them in and things would keep rolling on okay, Yeah. Because unless you've actually had a loved one in an ICU, you don't really comprehend everything that's going on there, and media doesn't generally reflect it, because while it is life and death, it's not hugely interesting necessarily, watching the numbers on somebody's monitor or monitoring all their medications simultaneously. It doesn't have a lot of inherent drama all the time. So yeah, that's what I really wanted this book to do, is to show, for two things. I wanted to show people what it was like to be on the inside of an ICU as a nurse, and then also for the nurses who'd gone through that experience with me to feel seen, because I know all of us pretty much feel unseen right now up to this day.
Oh, I can just imagine. I had the dubious fun of, I was an inpatient unit coordinator for a rehabilitation hospital for a couple years. And there's more pieces in that really spoke to me and spoke of many of the nurses that I know, because people weren't, it's like teaching and nursing. You're not in it unless you basically give a crap about people. I mean, there's no in either one of those for the money. But the second piece of it was the relationships, the work relationships there are different than many people imagine for their works. For instance, there was a graveyard shift and there was a female RN on duty and there was a male LPN on duty and then 2 CNAs in and out. And the head nurse used to refer to him. She's like, he's been my partner for 15 years. I call him my work husband. I have spent more hours of my life with him than my actual husband. Wow. And then we all laughed and she said that's probably kept her marriage going well. But just all of the adventures. Yeah, it's super different. People don't get it because, it sounds dramatic to say, right? But you literally are in the business of saving lives. And so you really have to be able to rely on your coworkers in a way that you don't necessarily have to, say, if you work at Google or something. Let me just take a big, broad shot there. Because very oftentimes, if you aren't able to trust in the person who's working alongside you, and almost get that whole telepathic, I've been in the trenches with you so long, I know what you're going to ask for next, here it is type thing, patient care can suffer. And so it's just, it is definitely like work wives and work husbands. It's just like on a totally different level. Well, it's true. And that also goes back to what you said about you can't just take a cog out and then put a new cog in. That staffing tends to be fairly regular. Like if it's heavy on one side, they could borrow from one unit to another and occasionally from a few quote unquote sister hospitals. But still, it's not the same. And you don't make them out of nothing. Nurses aren't magically something I can turn a high school kid into. Maybe a CNA a little bit, but even a certified nurse's assistant takes training and it takes classes.
Yeah.
Well, and you're a team, just like a football team or any other team like that does, or a unit in the Army that gets sent out for a specialized thing. You have to be able to work together. You have to know each other. You have to know, because in my job, it doesn't matter if I drop the ball. If it doesn't, in the long term, if you mess something up, someone may die. And imagine that pressure. I could not deal with that kind of pressure. I'm impressed that you manage this. You're my new hero. So.
Well, you gave us some of the humor too. For instance, you told me to go Google nurse whiteboard humor. And I lost 2 hours and laughed my guts up. So that was hilariously.
Nobody is
that Google link, won't we?
Yeah. Nobody is as sarcastic as nurses are sarcastic. I just am laying that down here. And nurse memes.
I don't know. I think some IT people could give you a run for your money, but it would be a very close race.
Yeah, nurse memes are super brutal. It's super, I love it though. We're because we never have time to spare, so we just cut right to the meat of things.
Yeah.
So Cassie, I know that you're at home at the moment because you've broken your leg.
Ow.
Silly person. If you hadn't broken your leg, do you think you would still be in an ICU treating COVID patients?
Well, yeah. So let me speak to that a little bit. So one of the main reasons I wrote Year of the Nurse was because, as I pretty much say, like in the first 5 pages, on April 25th this past year, 2021, I kind of had a suicidal ideation moment at work where I realized, oh, how ironic it is that I'm taking care of people trying to keep them alive and I really don't give a shit about mine. And I started crying, and I didn't really stop crying for several weeks. So I got hold of my very old therapist at that time, out of pocket. They're out of network. And so I was paying for her out of my own pocket to get a hold of her because the whole therapy system out here is like hugely impacted. I'm sure it is everywhere. And she was like, oh my God, you have PTSD. You need some time off. And I was like, really? That would be great. Because I was really, really, really messed up. And luckily my therapist knew, because she's known me for forever, that I also write. And so she was like, let's, in addition to the other things we're doing, which is like talk therapy and EMDR therapy, which is what they do with combat vets to kind of overcome PTSD, which I found super, super useful, to also try and write a book about things. And then that's where You're the Nurse was born, because I was like, oh, surely I've got like some material here. And then I went and collated back everything that I had written, and it turned out I had so much. And I just really had to winnow it down and put in a couple more original essays to actually form the book that you guys so kindly read. I was supposed to go back to work after that break in early August, and I wound up what I thought at the time was spraining my ankle in July. And I have an extraordinarily high pain tolerance, and I'm an idiot. So I walked around on that, and then I was like, I don't think I can do 10,000 steps a day on this ankle next week. I better go in. And then they took an x-ray, and you always know when you walk into the x-ray room, and then the x-ray tech comes back with a wheelchair for you, and he goes, you need this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've done something here. And like half a week later, I was getting surgery on my ankle. But long story short, I did want to go back to work. Was I looking forward to it? No, but I did want to go back, and I do want to go back. And I kind of have survivor's guilt still being on the sidelines now, not being able to go back, because I know I see these, I'm still in my nurse Facebook private group for my hospital. I see how short-staffed we are. I see my new boss's very plaintive emails begging people to come in, paying obscene amounts of money, and there's just no interest in anybody picking up extra shifts at this point because we're all so exhausted. So I do hope when I'm finished with rehab and stuff to go back, for if nothing else, to prove to myself that I can. And I would feel kind of bad if I were looking for a different job on the side right now, so I'm not going to do that because it's just not who I am. But yeah, will I be an ICU nurse for forever after this? I doubt it. And I think I probably speak for like all the ICU nurses in the world right now. Like, there's just, once you reach a point, and which isn't to say that I'm like a lottery winner or that I'm hugely financially comfortable or anything, but there comes a point when your quality of life outweighs your need to make money. And if money's the only thing they can offer you to come in, it's just not going to work.
Your story sounds remarkably similar to my friend Sam, who is, brace yourself, a social worker up in Oakland.
Oh gosh.
And they had some challenges listening to, and every day, day in and day out, of the feeling of hopelessness of that nothing they do gets better and the situation keeps being worse. And why doesn't anybody care? And I've listened to a lot of why doesn't anybody care, and held them for a few tears here and there. So I think PTSD in the job is more than just danger. It's more than just fire and guns and knives. There's a lot from people that have empathy and caring, and in what can largely seem like a very uncaring world.
For sure. Like the words that we use medically to kind of describe this when we're at the bedside, it's like either cognitive dissonance or moral distress. Because, we're always experiencing as ICU people low levels of moral distress, ED too, the people in the emergency department as well, just because a lot of times people expect us to do the impossible, right? And that's the kicker right now with all those people, all those nurses in Texas and Florida and Georgia trying to staunch the tide of unvaccinated people, because the COVID afflicting those people has, in those people's minds, come out of nowhere. And so they are going to be inherently unwilling to let their loved ones go, right? Like the American relationship with death is so effed up anyways. So
it's true.
Yeah. So those people are just going to be expecting miracles to happen, because miracles are what you see happening all the time on TV, and life just doesn't work like that. But when you are bedside, it's just super demoralizing to and not that people's care choices should be based on like their bedside nurse's feelings necessarily, but when all of your patient situations are essentially moving deck chairs on the Titanic, when you've gone to your job to make a difference in people's lives and nobody's living, that just really messes with your head.
Oh, I could see that. And I noticed that there was a difference in your style between, I went back and picked up one of the, let's call it the saucy erotica novels, and compared it with this one. And besides just using the word fuck a great deal more, it was a different tone. And I have to say, I really liked the real life tone, the real life Cassie tone of, you explain things in ways that work for nonfiction in a way. And I really wanted to dig down into that. If you can, it's in the way that you have to be careful in fiction of, is it too much exposition? Am I explaining too much? Am I going to lose the reader? But in a memoir and nonfiction, you can go into the nitty gritty details. And I love that you describe down in what the lungs do, down to saying, I've typed alveoli so many times, I start typing ravioli. And that also made me laugh like crazy. But did you find yourself, was it easier then to write the nonfiction, or was it easier to write back, the fantasy?
I would say like last year was such a weird time. I wrote a lot of words last year, but my fiction last year was to get away from bedside. So I wrote like 4 books last year, and admittedly they're paranormal romance, which is kind of on the shorter side. And they're going to have a happy ending and stuff. So that it wasn't like...
Was that cathartic in its own way to bring a bit of a happy...
Yeah. No, that's why I was writing so much. I would dream about those books when I wasn't being traumatized by work, and I would work on them on the few breaks that I got at work. And I would come home, I would barf my feelings into a journal or some other place, and then I would go back to writing those books. And it was like a dissociative way to find happiness, because I wanted to be in a world where I could create things and make things beautiful and cheerful, and people fell in love and everything was going to be okay. So I really found the value in softness and romance and kindness. I think writing kind of like my steamy paranormal romance that I write both as Cassie Alexander and then also with a friend, Kara Lockhart. And yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Although it brings up a new one, and I was going to say, you've written books with somebody, even if they're short novellas or short paranormal romances. How does it work to say, okay, friend, let's sit down and write something about how a German Shepherd and a parakeet fall in love?
She and I, so my friend Kara and I, we actually went to Clarion West in 2007 together. So we've known each other for a really long time, and we have a super high level of trust in the other person's opinion in the realm of what it is that they do. And so I'm like a workhorse. I just want to spit out words. And so we have a discussion usually before I launch off into a book. And, oh, hi, kitty. If you hear my cat, I'm sorry about that.
We like cats.
We do like cats. We call them coworkers.
He's definitely a coworker. So I'll write. So we'll discuss the high level concept of what a book is going to be like, and what maybe the trope we're going to explore in it is. And if that interests both of us, or if somebody doesn't want to do it. And then I kind of come up with a really big plot, and I write like 10,000 words, and then I show them to her. And so sometimes she'll be like, no, this tone isn't right, or this isn't selling right now. She's much more kind of like the editorial side of things. But then if she likes something I do, and then I generally just take everything home and do it myself and get a draft out to her in like 3 or 4 months. And then she sends it back and gives me edits and stuff and kind of keeps me in the right genre lane, because she has more experience and more time to read paranormal than I do, and to kind of keep everything on track. And then she's responsible for all of the business elements as well, like our Facebook ads, which is not a thing that I want to take on. So yeah, we kind of have, I don't think that we co-write in the way that normal people co-write, but we definitely pull our own weight, because she'll send me a book back and she'll be like, this is great, except for on this page here, these characters really need to do something else. And every time she gives me a suggestion, it makes the book better. So,
okay. That's really interesting. Acknowledging the editorial contribution as basically an equal share. I like that. What name do you publish these under?
So we have a series out right now. It's like the Prince of the Otherworld series. My name is Cassie Alexandra, obviously, and she's Kara Lockhart. But to take pity on our cover designers, we're going to try and be Cassie Lockhart in the future.
Sure.
And actually, we just released a new book today called Wolf's Princess. That was my exploration of the virginity trope, which actually wasn't actually about virginity, but I was like, I want to play with this. And I was like, can I do this? And she was like, only if you do it well. But I think I pulled it off with her help. So yeah, it's good because it's when you're doing indie publishing, there's so much to be doing that it'd be hard to keep track of all the balls on my own. And so I'm really glad that I can kind of just give her text and then let her run with it. Because again, like all the ads are like keeping abreast of like what covers need to look like nowadays, or like what blurbs are the most popular. It's just so much.
I'll have to get in touch and talk with her, because I'm curious about where anybody looks to find what covers are popular these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Cassie, we are going to make you give us her contacts.
I'm afraid so, because now I'm like, covers. Let's talk about cover. I see everybody's books are being reissued. Katie Murphy had some stuff coming out in new books. I'm like, a new cover, new audience. I need to learn some psychology here.
Yeah. I think she just haunts down the Amazon bestseller lists a lot. But then you have to be smart enough to consider, is all this up here just because they've been successful for forever and they're running a really good sale, or is this a genuine trend of what's happening now,
I like it. It's an interesting question.
Yeah.
So do you see yourself, now that you've written a memoir, a very piercing and heartfelt memoir with so much emotion, have you considered you have a paranormal nurse. Have you considered straight up lit of having romance just in the hospital, or is that because to a certain extent, I worked in a hospital and the idea of romance in a hospital just made me giggle. So.
Yeah. No, that is like, it makes me giggle and or want to gag.
Yeah. Like, no.
The hospital is like the least sexy environment ever. If you've ever worked at a hospital,
it really isn't
much about it. It's like the Augean stables, but only for humanity.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see. So here you have the LPN cleaning up where a patient was incontinent of her room, and the handsome intern comes with a bucket. Oh, that bucket is so beautiful.
Yeah. Like I think it's great to make fast friendships fast. Like I've never, like when you meet a nurse and you find or any healthcare worker usually, and you find out that the other person's a healthcare worker, then you can just take your relationship up a notch right there and just be instantly honest with the other person without any artifice, because you don't have to hold your true self back. You don't have to worry that you're going to scare them or scar them or anything like that. And so work's great for those kind of relationships, but it's not sexy, not like they make it look like on TV, at all. So, yeah.
Well, what about the nurse and the attractive firefighter paramedic?
Yeah.
I did ambulance transport for a while, and some of those guys were cute. And then when I was in Bern, we would have residents there because it was a teaching hospital, and they were all cute. Some of them were cuter than others, but I was just like, oh my gosh, though, you guys are like 24, 25.
And then there's that other problem, yes.
Well, have you considered writing? Yeah, using all of this that you've experienced recently and writing a novel that's non-genre at all?
Oh, like a literary novel? I mean, like straight up. I can't say that I haven't considered it, but I just haven't found the right time. Well, I did write one book, but unfortunately my agent didn't like it. It was about a sociopathic teen who the point was that you were supposed to kind of be a writer along in her experiences and have like the slow dawn of horror that she wasn't a good person and she stays a bad person. And it was about the ride, and my agent was like, this is unsellable. And I was like, darn it. I think that's the only contemporary thing I've written.
I'm dying to read it now.
Well, yeah, because that kind of, I was just thinking that we're still under the thrall of COVID to some extent, that a modern literary novel, especially, from a nurse's standpoint, I think would be, I think it would be very worth writing or looking into. I think it would be a good time for it if you're doing it, have it be
dating in the time of COVID, a nurse's perspective, because you can't meet anybody. So they've got to write to you. So you could have an amazing series of letters.
Oh, yes. The epistolary COVID novel.
The epistolary COVID novel.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Email. Yeah. With email and Twitter and all sorts of things. That could be really interesting.
The problem is we just fell in love with your book, so we want more like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is like, I would feel more confident doing something like that if all of this had a defined ending.
Right.
But because it doesn't, with the memoir, I could at least shrug and say, okay, this is as far as I've gotten, thanks. But I feel like with the book, you would owe a reader a better ending. And unless it was like one of those sad and he died kind of endings, I don't know that.
Wait, no. He died beautifully. Make it like opera.
I don't know that you could do that right now.
That's so literary, though, is to have a non-ending ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, you'd probably win a Booker Prize or something, whatever that is, or some big prize for having a non-ending ending. Because I'm sorry, my mom was a literature professor at Idaho State, and I get caught up in these things.
So what's next after Wolf's Princess? What are you working on right now?
Right now, I decided I actually have a file on Google Docs that's titled the Going Wide and Escaping Nursing Project. So I'm re-release. I took down all of my books from Amazon a couple months ago, all of my solo titles. And like I told you guys, I've been hopefully in the process of getting all of my night shifted books back. So I'm recovering everything and re-releasing everything. And so I should kind of be having a book release a month for like the next 8 months based on my old stuff. And I'm going to try and use that to launchpad writing some more books in one of those series that I particularly like. So that's what I'm working on now, is just trying to fashion some sort of escape route from bedside. I feel like I can be honest with you guys because you're writers and you don't expect me you to like slave away in the hospital for forever. So
any kind of creativity right now is precious. We were just chatting with one of our number last week when Cliff was saying, how do you write during COVID at home with children? So there's a lot of challenges. My hat's off to you for keeping at it during the last year in spite of everything.
Thank you.
And we will put links to your stuff that we mentioned on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingcoffee.com. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter. We love email. Cassie, if somebody wants to email you, do you get back to them? Can we send you a note?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. And I have like on my website, it's cassiealexander.com. There's like a contact form there that actually comes through to me. So
perfect. I will make sure to put it in the liner notes. And thank you so much for coming with us today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
It is. You've been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the hosts. Our main web support magic is brought to you by Deirdre Schween, and our sound engineer and backup web spider is David Welsh. Our intro music is Pretty Maid Milking a Cow, and our exit music is Breakfast with a Morning Person, both by Michael Ingberg. You can hear more from Michael Ingberg on manyhatsmusic.com. Our podcast sponsor is Jackal Designs, enabling you all to buy cool WDC swag. And hey, thanks so much for listening.